Square Enix is going multi-platform and they're ditching console exclusivity. Let's talk about it. We got some big news, especially for Final Fantasy and its future. Now, console exclusivity has always been a thing when it comes to Square Enix. It's either on or off, but more often than not, it's been on. And Final Fantasy, particularly, has been recently the biggest example for them. Final Fantasy 16 and 7 Remake and Rebirth were all PlayStation exclusives on launch. But funnily enough, Final Fantasy 15 wasn't. It also launched on Xbox day one. I think the PC port for 15 came later, but don't quote me on that. And the funny thing is, when you look at the actual reception to a lot of these games, like Final Fantasy 7 Remake, like 16, like Rebirth, and you talk to people who have actually played the games, myself included, the reception to them is extremely positive. These games are largely well constructed and filled with content to actually, well, consume. And they're really fun and have amazing narratives alongside of it. But we have seen their sales numbers being less than appealing, and they haven't even announced the Rebirth numbers, and that could be telling by itself. But for a franchise as storied and as well-renowned as Final Fantasy, on the whole, you would expect larger numbers than what it's been getting, and that's largely probably because, in my opinion, it's a PlayStation exclusive. And Rebirth launched at $70. That's a lot of money, and when you're targeting a limited audience, when most of your audience is at this point probably on multiple platforms, specifically PC nowadays, the argument to justify Square Enix being on PlayStation has always been that Sony has given them a bag for their troubles. But now, with them just coming out to say, yeah, we're going multi-platform pretty much entirely here. In fact, I'll just read the quote. And this is from Square Enix's consolidated financial results for the fiscal year ended March 31st, 2024, released on May 13th, 2024. On page 9, 12 of the PDF. In section 2, it says diversify earnings opportunities by strengthening customer contact points, with the first bullet point being shift to a multi-platform strategy. For HD titles, the group will aggressively pursue a multi-platform strategy, pick up on the word aggressively, that includes Nintendo platforms, I switch to PlayStation, Xbox, and PCs, especially in regards to major franchises and AAA titles, including catalog titles. It will build an environment where more customers can enjoy our titles. In addition, it will also devise a platform strategy for SD titles that includes not only iOS and Android, but also the possibility of PC launches. Furthermore, the group will strive to maximize the acquisition of new users when launching a title and that of recurring users after starting management of game operation. I've been calling it for a while. I said before, having Phil Spencer at the Final Fantasy XIV Fan Fest with the Square Enix higher-ups, basically reaffirming a commitment to Xbox as well. Square Enix's goal is to go multi-platform, and they've just come out and said it here. This to me is strictly good news, specifically this subject matter particularly. Exclusivity is a bane on the industry in my opinion, and offers no palpable advantage to the consumer, merely forcing and pigeonholing a lot of people into an ecosystem of a plastic box because they may have the specific title they really care about or whatever. But the industry is changing, and with a stagnating console market, it is obvious to me that these corporations that only care about money will seek alternate avenues to acquire said money. They want more money for less effort as quickly as possible. Turns out, Square Enix specifically wouldn't give a crap about how big they can make Sony or PlayStation, or how much money they can make those companies. They want to make money for themselves, and shifting to multi-platform simply makes the best sense. I've been saying this for a while, and it turns out they agree. What does this mean for the future of Final Fantasy? I think the biggest point of contention and the biggest point of interest, in my opinion, is in regards to Final Fantasy VII Remake series' final and third game. You got to imagine, though we don't know this for a fact, that since Remake and Rebirth, Part 1 and 2 respectively, were PlayStation console exclusives for launch, that there was probably some deal in place for the entire trilogy, not just on a game-to-game basis. Maybe Square Enix could find a way out of it, or maybe it was just a game-for-game basis and whatnot, or maybe a new deal can be struck, whatever. I think if there's going to be another Final Fantasy console exclusive, it will be that game, which will likely launch in 2027 to line up with FF7's 30-year anniversary. Also, I think they said they're shooting for 2027 for that, but don't quote me on that. But for games like possible Final Fantasy 17, if that's what they want to call it, I can't imagine a world where that's not multi-platform day one, and that's strictly a good thing in my opinion. As I've said before, there's no advantage to the consumer for these games to be exclusive. Just hubris and pride and a BS console war argument that is more pro-corporation and not consumer than anything. My preference would always be to play these games on PC because that's my platform of choice. It is not for others, and they should be able to play these games on their own platform of choice. And seemingly, that's the direction Square Enix is going. Thumbs up for me, honestly. It does sound as if Square Enix will be cutting some jobs in the Europe and American divisions, which sucks for those workers, obviously. But I also don't find it surprising, especially if you've been following Square Enix and what they've been talking about in terms of their financial stuff for a little bit now. It seems they're going under drastic changes internally, as well as their overall direction when it comes to games. They even talk about it a little bit in the PDF article in the description down below, where they'll be focusing more in on quality instead of quantity for games, and they want a regular cadence for the game releases for all of their bigger titles and bigger, IP. We'll have to see if this new direction is healthier for them or, works. But I've been an advocate and a defendant of modern Final Fantasy for a while. It's just that it's been targeting a limited pool of players, especially when it comes to Final Fantasy 16 and Rebirth and the PS5 being full-priced games. I'm sorry, but that's a tough sell on those consoles if you're not 2K or if you're not God of War or Spider-Man. Anything else is delusion in my opinion. But I love Final Fantasy. It's one of my favorite IPs in gaming right now, and I think they've been knocking it out of the park in terms of actual game quality for a while now. They've been doing really good work here. The problem is, it's not everywhere where all the Final Fantasy players are. If you want to sell a lot of titles, you have to hit when the iron's hot. Selling a game on PC months or even a year or two down the line after the fact when all the hype has died down, people have probably watched a Let's Play or a walkthrough or whatever, and the excitement and desire to play and interact with the game is less. So less copies get sold. It's basic, especially when you take a step back and think about it for more than 2 seconds. I'm optimistic for the future of Final Fantasy. There's a lot of question marks in regards to what directions they take, but I think when it comes to Square Enix on the whole, I think it's a safe bet to say that games like Kingdom Hearts 4, Dragon Quest 12, if they still remember that game, will be multi-platform unless there's already some pre-existing deal, which I can't imagine there was, or is. It's also cool to see Nintendo consoles thrown into the mix here as well, in my opinion. I can't imagine they'll ever get Rebirth to run on the Switch, but possibly the Switch too. But as a PC player, this is strictly positive for me because it means the games I care about will now be on PC, and I have less incentive or desire to ever touch my PlayStation again. And with Sony and Microsoft being absolute clown fiestas lately, good. But yeah, Square Enix is going through a lot of changes. I think they have taken a look in the mirror and they don't like what they saw. Companies care about money. That's all they care about. It's all they ever have cared about, and it's all they ever will care about. A lot of the times, I tend to find if you want to understand a company's decision-making or even predict what will happen to it, just ask yourself, well, what will make them the most money? When you view it through that lens, this decision, in my opinion, was extremely obvious. Especially when they basically told you back at FanFest. I don't think this comes out of left field or anything, it just, if you kept up to date with Square Enix, this makes so much sense. And I saw this coming a mile away. Exclusivity is a dying idea in video games. It won't go away entirely, but its importance will fade away. Heck, even Phil Spencer pretty much said that. They're basically telling you what they're going to do or announce way down the line. You just gotta listen. When someone tells you who they are, pay attention. And this goes along to my previous point I've talked about a while back. I think Sony is gearing up for a launcher on PC as well. Times are changing. It's as simple as that. Old logic, old reasoning, old business practices no longer apply. In a stagnating market, these companies will get desperate to find some way to show profits rising and revenue increasing. PC is a massive market, and sometimes a widely misunderstood market, but it's a wide market nonetheless. And if these companies want to make more money, you bet your butt they'll look into it. It seems Square Enix definitely has. But also, they're coming to other consoles as well, so that's thumbs up for me, because I want people to be able to play these games. Doesn't matter to me, it's none of my business what console or platform you play your games on. I just think you should be able to have access to these games, especially when these studios are big enough to do that. And with that, I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for bringing the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts, your opinions on the state of Square Enix. What is your favorite IP that they make, and what platform do you want to see that IP, or what platform will you be playing their games on in the future, assuming all their games from here on out will be multi-platform? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts and hear your opinions. Stay safe. Have a great day. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.